New York City, the greatest, most competitive music conservatory in the world, the Shaffer Conservatory. Walking through its doors is a privilege that thousands of students dream about their entire lives. But surviving inside those walls, that is an entirely different story. Andrew Neiman is 19 years old, skinny, quiet, and almost invisible in a crowd. His father is a failed writer who teaches high school English to make ends meet. Andrew has no connections, no money, no famous last name. What he does have is a drum kit, a basement to practice in, and a hunger so deep it frightens even him. He doesn't just want to be good, he wants to be one of the greats. Not in a vague, dreamy way, in a specific, obsessive, consuming way. He wants his name to be spoken in the same breath as Buddy Rich. He wants to be the kind of drummer that people remember long after they're gone. One evening, Andrew stays late to practice alone in one of the school's rehearsal rooms. The hallways are empty. The building is quiet. He loses himself in the rhythm, eyes closed, sweat forming on his forehead, completely in his own world. Then he hears footsteps. He opens his eyes. Standing in the doorway watching him with an unreadable expression is a man in a perfectly pressed jacket. Terence Fletcher. The name alone sends a chill through every student at Shaffer. Fletcher is the director of the school's prestigious studio band, the most elite musical ensemble in the country. He has produced legends. He has also destroyed careers. Nobody knows which one he will do to you until it's already too late. He watches Andrew for a long moment, says absolutely nothing, and then walks away. Andrew stares at the empty doorway, his heart hammering. He doesn't know what just happened, but he knows, deep in his bones, that something is about to change. The next morning, Andrew receives an invitation to join Fletcher's studio band. For a moment, he can't breathe. This is everything he has worked for. This is the door he has been knocking on his entire life. He walks into that first rehearsal with trembling legs and wide eyes, trying to look calm, trying to look like he belongs. The room is filled with the best young musicians in the country. Everyone is sharp, focused, and quietly terrified. Then Fletcher walks in. The room changes the moment he enters. The temperature drops. Every spine straightens. Every eye stares forward. Fletcher moves slowly, deliberately, like a predator who already knows he has all the time in the world. He adjusts a music stand here, taps a sheet there, and then without any warning he stops in front of one of the musicians and asks a single question in a calm, almost gentle voice. The musician answers, and then in less than a second Fletcher explodes, not with anger exactly, with something colder, something surgical. He tears the musician apart with words that are precise and devastating. By the time he finishes, the musician looks like he wants to disappear through the floor. The rest of the room sits in frozen silence. This is not a music class. This is something else entirely. Andrew watches all of this and feels two things simultaneously: terror and fascination. Because beneath the cruelty, beneath the humiliation, he senses something he can't quite name: a method, a belief. Fletcher genuinely thinks that comfort is the enemy of greatness, that the only way to find out what a person is truly capable of is to push them past every limit they think they have, and then push harder. The weeks that follow are unlike anything Andrew has ever experienced. He practices until his hands bleed, literally. He wraps his knuckles in tape, soaks them in ice water, and goes back to the kit. He wakes before dawn. He falls asleep at his drum set. He plays the same passage hundreds of times, chasing a tempo that always feels just slightly out of reach. Fletcher never tells him he's good. Fletcher never tells anyone they're good. The closest thing to a compliment in Fletcher's world is the absence of criticism. And even that feels dangerous, like the calm before a storm. Then comes the rehearsal that Andrew will never forget for the rest of his life. Fletcher stops the entire band mid-piece. He looks at Andrew. He walks toward him slowly. He asks in that quiet, terrifying voice of his whether Andrew is rushing or dragging the tempo. Andrew tries to answer. He can't get the words right. Fletcher asks again, and again. Each time his voice gets slightly lower, slightly colder. And then, without warning, Fletcher hurls a metal chair across the room. It flies past Andrew's head, crashing against the wall with a sound like a gunshot. The room goes completely silent. Fletcher leans in close to Andrew's face and tells him, in absolute seriousness, that he is there to push people. That if he didn't think someone had the potential for greatness, He wouldn't waste a single second of his time on them, and then he walks away, leaving Andrew shaking, bleeding, and somehow, impossibly, more determined than he was before. This is the trap that Whiplash sets so brilliantly. Because part of us watching this understands Andrew. Part of us has felt that same desperate hunger to be exceptional. Part of us has wondered what we might be capable of if someone pushed us hard enough. And that part makes us complicit in what comes next. Andrew starts pulling away from everything in his life that isn't music. He begins dating a girl named Nicole who works at the movie theatre near campus. She's warm, funny, easy to be around. For a brief moment, she represents a version of Andrew's life that could be normal, that could be happy, but Andrew ends the relationship before it can grow into something real. He tells her, with a kind of detached clarity that is more frightening than anger, that the relationship will eventually get in the way, that one day she'll want him to come to dinner instead of practice, and he can't have that. He needs to be free to be consumed. She stares at him like she's looking at someone she doesn't recognise. She's not wrong. At a family dinner, Andrew sits among relatives who celebrate ordinary achievements. A cousin made the football team. A nephew got good grades. Everyone applauds politely. Andrew says almost nothing. But inside something is burning. He doesn't want ordinary success. He doesn't want to be applauded at a family dinner. He wants to be the kind of person that changes what music sounds like. He wants to leave a mark on the world that doesn't fade. His father watches him from across the table, worried in a way he can't quite articulate. He sees the obsession growing. He doesn't yet know what it's going to cost. Back in the rehearsal room, Fletcher continues his psychological warfare. He replaces Andrew as first chair without explanation, then brings him back. He praises him one day and demolishes him the next. He creates an atmosphere of total uncertainty where nobody, not even the most talented musician in the room, ever feels safe. This is deliberate. This is the system. Fletcher genuinely believes that the greatest musicians in history were only pushed to their heights because someone in their life refused to let them believe they were already good enough. He tells the story of Charlie Parker, how a drummer once threw a cymbal at him during a performance, how that humiliation was the catalyst that turned him into one of the greatest jazz musicians who ever lived. Fletcher wants to be that cymbal. He wants to be the thing that breaks you open. The question the film keeps asking, quietly and relentlessly, is whether he is right. Andrew keeps rising to every challenge. His playing gets better, genuinely, undeniably better. There are moments in his rehearsals where something happens, where the tempo locks in and the sound fills the room and everything else disappears. And you can see on his face that this is the closest thing to joy he knows, but those moments are always followed by more pain, more doubt, more of Fletcher's voice in his head telling him, it isn't enough. It will never be enough. He doesn't have what it takes. Then comes the competition, a major jazz festival, the biggest stage Andrew has ever performed on. Everything he has suffered for is building toward this moment. And then, on the way to the venue, there is a car accident. Andrew's rental car is struck by a truck. He crawls out of the wreckage, bleeding, disoriented, his body screaming at him to stop. He gets in a cab. He arrives at the venue. He takes the stage, barely able to hold his sticks, and tries to play through the pain and the shock. He loses the tempo. He can't hold it together. Fletcher stops the performance and removes him from the band. And Andrew, shaking and bleeding, and humiliated in front of an audience of hundreds, snaps. He attacks Fletcher on stage, in front of everyone. He tackles him to the ground like all of the rage that has been building for months has finally found somewhere to go. He is expelled from Shaffer Conservatory. Just like that, it is over. Or so it seems. In the weeks that follow, Andrew exists in a kind of numb silence. He stops playing. He barely leaves the apartment. His father holds him, and for a moment Andrew is just a kid again. Just a lost 19-year-old who gave everything to a dream and ended up with nothing. It is the most human he has looked in the entire film. Then a legal case emerges. Another former student of Fletcher's comes forward. He was pushed so far, so brutally, that he suffered a complete psychological breakdown and later took his own life. Fletcher, it turns out, had been doing this for years, destroying people in the name of excellence. Andrew is asked to testify. He does. Fletcher is forced to resign from Shaffer. Sometime later, Andrew runs into Fletcher at a jazz bar. Fletcher is playing piano in a small, relaxed setting. They talk. Fletcher seems different outside the conservatory, almost human. He tells Andrew that he truly believed in what he was doing, that he was trying to push people towards something real. Andrew listens, and when Fletcher offers him a spot in a band for a major upcoming concert, Andrew accepts. Maybe out of curiosity, maybe out of unfinished business, maybe because he still hasn't let go. The night of the concert arrives. Carnegie Hall, the most famous stage in the world. Andrew walks out to his drum kit in front of a packed, expectant audience. And then Fletcher calls an audible. He announces a piece that was never in the plan, a piece Andrew has never rehearsed with this band. It is a trap, a final public humiliation, revenge for the testimony that ended Fletcher's career. Andrew stumbles through the opening bars, completely lost. He can hear the audience shifting uncomfortably. He can feel the disaster unfolding in real time. Fletcher watches from the podium with cold satisfaction. Andrew stops. He looks at his father in the audience. He looks at his hands. And then something shifts. Something that has been building through every bleeding rehearsal, every thrown chair, every moment of self-doubt and desperate hunger, crystallizes into something clear and absolute. Andrew starts playing. Not the piece Fletcher called, his own intro, his own tempo, his own statement. Fletcher tries to cut him off, tries to end the performance, but Andrew doesn't stop. He plays harder, faster, deeper than he has ever played in his life. The band, uncertain at first, begins to follow him. The audience leans forward. Fletcher, standing at the podium, slowly lowers his baton, and for just a moment, watching Andrew unleash everything he has been saving, Fletcher's face changes. The cold satisfaction is gone. Something else is there. Recognition. Maybe even awe. The music builds to a furious, magnificent climax. Andrew plays until there is nothing left. And when it is finally over, when the last note fades into the silence of Carnegie Hall, the two of them look at each other across the stage. No words, no resolution. Just two people who have been locked in a brutal, consuming contest of wills, finally seeing each other clearly.